Hello, welcome to the Day Show, Season 2, Episode 13. Today we're going to talk about Wreck-It Ralph, right?
Yes.
Sorry.
We'll do it live.
Yeah. So anyways, just a little recap. The Day Show has been not filmed since 2009, I think.
Ish.
Yeah, and I released a film cut of it, so it's a lot more watchable, and then didn't do anything with it. But yeah, I always wanted to continue doing more, so here we are. Here I am with, well, I'm Jason Day, or J Day, if you want to call me that, and this is
81 Rambler.
Yeah, and you've been on the J Show before.
In another form. Yes.
I'm still me. And yeah, welcome. So today we're going to talk about Wreck-It Ralph.
Alright, so we'll start with impressions.
Yeah, sure. First impressions, yeah.
Well, and how about, yeah, we'll start with you then. You're more of a typical movie audience type of person. You don't have any particular investment in the subject,
no,
which Wreck-It Ralph is mostly surrounding something, which is the video game culture. So, just as a moviegoer, like, what did you think of it? Like, first about the concept, essentially.
Well, I used to be a heavy gamer, but now I'm just more of a film moviegoer, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, going in as just a movie fan and not a hardcore gamer like that, it was still really enjoyable to watch. And I thought the characters that were the main characters that were kind of made up for the movie, but they're there to represent existing characters. Like, you know, Ralph would be the Donkey Kong kind of character, and what was the main?
Fix-It Felix?
Felix, yeah, Fix-It Felix. He would be the Mario character, right? But you don't have to know that when you're watching this movie. The first initial impression of the movie was, I liked it, because it was like, it did remind me of the nostalgia of the old arcade games, and the characters kind of like that, you know, some of them do, and then some of them don't, and yeah, it was nicely animated and relatively good.
Right. Well then, going to this, like, I'm a video game history buff, as, well, as Jay would know, and like anyone who actually knows me personally, but I was very intrigued when I first heard about, like, making a video game, essentially something that's based around, like, the 80s, 90s, well, typically early 80s arcade culture, and when I first heard about this, I was a little bit, had some trepidation about it, because, you know, it is Disney, and they have done, like, great homages, like, granted, working with Pixar, with Toy Story, for, like, you know, older toys, whatever, and something that I'll be going back to repeatedly is Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which is a very good homage to, well, not really homage, but very nice callback to, like, older animation.
Mm-hmm.
So, was this going to be, like, this generation's, like, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, essentially? And I think it very much pulled that off, and to much of my surprise, and not just for the fact that, you know, it does call back to a lot of these games, but it doesn't rely on that entirely. It does have its own ideas and its own assets that it does use to tell a story and all these characters. And it's a much stronger movie for that, but we'll probably get into that in more detail later on.
Yeah, but now that you mention it, does bear some resemblance to Framed Roger Rabbit, where it had like a whole group of copyright infringements everywhere. Like you got Walt Disney and Warner Brothers mixed together, and this was like Sega and Nintendo and this and Atari all mixed together as well, with a central character based around it.
And they got, like, a lot of ones to represent that era. I mean, like, you know, a lot of people would kind of argue against, like, Mario and Bowser, but technically it did have an arcade release with versus Super Mario Brothers. Even Sonic and Eggman were in the movie, and, like, they've had a arcade game as well. I mean, if you want to split hairs about the difference between an arcade and a, you know, home console game. But, like, but again, there's all these other callbacks that are really obscure, like, for instance, Root Beer Tapper, which some people I talked to didn't even know that was an actual arcade game.
I've heard of it.
Yeah. Well, no, there's a lot of history about the fact it was initially called Tapper, but that was also tied to an actual beer license, and then when it came to the general public as an arcade game, it became Root Beer Tapper.
Oh, okay.
So it was a little bit curious for me at first when they kept on referring to it as Tapper. So.
Don't remember that.
Yeah. There's also, like, you know, Frogger, and, like, there's all other ones, like, you know, like Pac-Man's in there, and I think Dig Dug you can find in there at one point. I think
there's so many.
No, Q*bert, actually. That was surprising.
Yeah, that was one of the most enjoyable side characters. You know, all that. It's funny, it's hilarious. And they actually put the speech bubbles in with all the gibberish.
Yeah. They definitely got all the right notes with the characters that they represented, at least in terms of. But that's the initial impressions then.
Yeah.
Okay.
So next is the plot, eh? What do you think of the whole overall plot of the film?
Well, I've heard a lot of people complain about the whole thing that. So the title character is Wreck-It Ralph, obviously, and eventually, like the first 20 minutes, the whole big cameo drop, and then there's the setup, and it kind of not to say meanders around a little bit, but then it finally the movie hits its pace within the game known as Sugar Rush.
Yeah.
And a lot of people complained at that point because they would say, like, this movie is no longer then about Ralph so much as it is about Von Schweetz, which was the little girl.
The glitch.
Yeah, the glitch. And it became a movie about her from that point on. But I don't really think that is actually really the case. Well, we'll talk about the character development later on, but in terms of the plot, I mean, I won't say the movie didn't really necessarily ground to a halt, because at that point it's still more about like Ralph's development as becoming a hero, making all these difficult decisions that a real hero would have to put up with.
Well, I found that I don't know if this is a problem in the film itself, but people go in. I think anyway, people go in expecting the characters, Wreck-It Ralph and whatever, to go into a bunch of games, like a lot, and he just goes into 2 games,
pretty much.
maybe 3.
Yeah, if you want to count Pac-Man, essentially.
Yeah, Pac-Man. There's a meeting there. They have a meeting, which is kind of neat, and you get to see how from our point of view, if you're looking at the screen in any good form. But basically, they only go to this kind of Call of Duty futuristic Metroid, amalgamation of a game, and he meets the love interest there, and the backstory that's programmed into her is quite great. It's one of the best parts of the movie.
That becomes Felix's love interest. Yeah.
Oh, right. Yes. Yeah. But so then, anyways, Ralph then goes from that to what was it called again?
Sugar Rush.
Sugar Rush. It's like a Mario Kart inspiration, homage to.
Yeah.
And that's basically it. They just go to those 2 games. Mainly, and of course there's the Wreck-It Ralph game. Of course, it starts there.
And surprisingly, that game, well, the Fix Felix Jr. is the name of the arcade game. Yeah. But surprisingly, that doesn't really get a whole lot of, like, we'll say, screen time. The good 50% of the movie does take place in Sugar Rush. Yeah, like a lot. Most of the movie takes place in the Mario Kart
Sugar Rush game, and honestly, it made me want to play Mario Kart. A lot, actually, because it was really well done. Like, it really brought back the feeling of the Mario Kart game. It's like, man, I want to go home and play Mario Kart,
Yeah. In terms of the effect of the plot, though, I mean,
sorry.
Yeah. But in terms of the plot, it doesn't really. I don't think it hurts it in any significant way, though, because if we have the characters can really go into each of these different roles with all its own cast and its own set of heroes, it really would bog the viewer down as like, oh, well, now here's all these sets of characters and all these other rules in this world that you have to now absorb, and now we're on to another one.
Yeah, it probably wouldn't help the plot if they kept going. It would be more of a video game, really. Like, not really a story.
And amongst the 2 worlds that they had created between Hero's Duty and Sugar Rush, I'm kind of glad they actually did go Sugar Rush, because it just would have been a very drab-looking movie.
Well, it is.
Duty.
It is quite fun, that Sugar Rush scenario. Like, they have donut cops, for example. Remember that?
Yeah, I mean, they have a lot of good gags. Right?
Yeah, like it's
stereotypical as that may be, but
it makes you feel like you're rotting your teeth watching it. Like, it's just all this candy everywhere, and characters are candy, and oh wow. And
but then
I want that. I want to see a video game.
Yeah,
sure.
Well, I don't doubt something is going to come to that pass eventually. But in terms, like, getting back to the plot, though, I mean, so then the movie does stick with this one centric cast of characters, which it essentially focuses on. The main aspect of this game is that there's this whole large mass of racers for this one game, Sugar Rush, and 9 become playable every day. They rotate it. Well, in the real world, it's a sort of a random rotation. In the game world, after the game is shut off, shuts down for the night, they hold this little tournament to see which of the 9 racers are going to race in tomorrow's roster.
Yeah, the game essentially plays itself.
So that's when we bring in, Ron Schweetz, who is trying to get into the roster, but is continually blocked off by all these rules set by the Candy King, right? That's his name.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So then the story then becomes about Ralph, about helping her, Ralph helping her getting into a proper race roster, which the Candy King is all sorts of against, which we find out for various reasons later on.
Oh, just so you know, there might be a bit of spoilers.
Well, this movie had this. I think I want to comment this be a bit more of a movie analysis than anything else, really.
Yeah. So if you're watching this, please watch the movie first. Mm-hmm. You know. We'll put that in the thing. Yeah. You know, but, like it's a review, right? So
but that part is something that you're gonna have to be facing for like the bulk of the movie, because that becomes like the bulk of the plot essentially at that point.
And also, there's like a whole end of world kind of scenario where we're in this universe that they play in. If the arcade machine is unplugged, that their world is over. They have to escape, or else they're dead. Yeah, essentially.
It creates a very interesting theology behind the movie, which I think could be discussed at great length.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, like it's the game gets unplugged. They travel through the power cords into the main hub. But I don't understand.
The power bar, essentially.
The power bar? Is that what it is?
That's all it was.
They go through so they go through the power cord and into the power bar, the main power provider of all these games, and they have to get out before the game gets shut off, if that ever happens. And that does happen to the Q*bert character, and they're like basically homeless in the power plug bar.
Yeah. You see them in the beginning, and Ralph like stumbles upon them. They have this little homeless stand, like we'll start an FPS for food or something like that. Which I think again it creates a very interesting like theology, like it very much creates a world for all of these characters to
a world that we are unaware of. It's that very feeling when you're watching the movie. It's kind of neat. Yeah.
If we're going to continue discussing the plot, then now we are going to get into major spoiler territory,
which is completely fine.
Yeah. So then,
spoiler alert. You know this. Okay.
Yeah. So then the reason that you discover that King Candy does not want Von Schweetz to race in this game, whatever, is if she, and this will become a bit of a stick in my craw later on. His reasoning behind it is, if Von Schweetz races and she is a glitched character, which is, I don't know, you can consider not to say the odd job of GoldenEye or something like that, or essentially a character who really cheat and otherwise destroy the game. Yeah. And his reasoning is, if she races and players are not going to like her because she is glitched, either needs to be like an unfair character one way or the other, then at that point they are going to shut down the game. And the Candy King does say that because she is glitched, and this is one thing I have a bit issue, which I don't really think they really explain properly as to why this is with the world that they created. Because she is glitched, she would not be able to leave the game through the power bar as all the other characters do.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit of, you don't have to know. That's just the way it is.
It is horrible, but
she's bugged, so therefore she can't.
She is bugged, but it's trying to decipher exactly how this works. It's not within the universe that they make. It does create tension.
It's a threat.
Yeah. It's just kind of something if you if you like to really examine how things work in a movie in your head, that might be a little bit of a sticking point, but it does pay off as a plot point later on.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So then Ralph essentially turns heel on Von Schweetz, destroys her cart, and at that point he's making that first really big hero's decision. He can't let Von Schweetz race because essentially it would amount to her death.
Yeah.
Short version.
And he's trying to tell her that, but she doesn't. She's just like a kid basically, and doesn't want. She just wants to race. That's all she wants. Well, but she's doing it for the greater good, and it's for her best. And
it doesn't. That's not saying it's not going to break your heart when you see it.
No, it's a tearjerker. A little bit of tearjerker. I almost cried a little bit. Yeah.
But that's again part of Ralph's growth or whatever. Is when he learns being a hero is not just about getting a medal, which is why he went to hero's duty in the first place, was to get a medal, which he did by climbing a tower and fighting some bugs.
And that's another thing though. Going back to it's sad. Almost it's a tearjerker a bit. I was not expecting a tearjerker from a game with Bowser and Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong's on there, but the main villain of Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah. It kind of does speak well for the movie in that Von Schweetz. Being perfectly honest, I really, particularly with how the trailers portrayed her, I really did not like her as a character. It seemed like that annoying little kid from The Gathering. You just really don't want to, because she makes all these jokes and thinks she is so witty and just has that bit of a grate to her voice that just kind of drills right into your head. But at that point, you still feel terrible about what she's being put through, but what Ralph is being put through, because
you end up liking the character basically.
She does kind of grow on you a little bit.
Yeah, she does grow on you like a weed.
Like a weed.
Yeah.
But
and then there's the whole well, spoiler alert. I shouldn't have to say this anymore, but the person that actually created the glitch itself was the Candy King.
Candy King, who, and I thought this was actually a rather neat idea.
They go into the code.
Yeah, well, he goes into the code.
They go into the code.
Yeah. Hey, this is actually something else that kind of sticks in my craw too. Like this is very much a geek nitpick, but the code that he uses to get into the game world code essentially is the Konami code: up, down, down, left, right, B, A, B, A. Like, you know, any. I think something a bit more appropriate for that would have been, you know, like the Sonic 2 debug code, because that is about going into the code and messing around with it.
The Final Fantasy 7 debug room mode code, that would
something
be
like
excessive.
That too. But at that point, though, like, and this is where you would want to create the divide between, you know, a movie made for a geek and the movie made for the general audience. The general audience might know what the Konami code is.
It's a little bit for both, though. It's kind of nice to have a happy balance between the both.
Yeah. But I mean, if you were to toss in like surface sort of obscure debug code, I mean, that would have been,
yeah.
They like half the audience wouldn't get that joke, but then some of us in the audience would be like, "Oh."
See, I didn't get it because I don't know that Konami code. I don't, and if I did, I don't remember it. Like,
and this is why you're the movie angle of this review. But
when they were in the code, though, it kind of reminded me of Tron.
Yeah.
Tron Legacy a bit, or am I thinking of something else?
It was an interesting way to essentially display code for the game, like how it all ties in together. It's kind of like very.
Like each character would have like a code, a bar.
Like a box, essentially.
A box with their name on it.
And instantly, if you want to get into like really deep programming level, that'd be known as object coding, which does actually exist, even if it is like a very simplified way of putting it.
Of course, yes.
But I'm just kind of geeking off.
But anyways, the basic plot is what we just talked about. Like, you know, Wreck-It Ralph wants to get a medal, goes into other games to get it, and he's sick of being the villain, wants to be the hero. And he finds a character, falls in love with, like a daughter-father relationship with this kid that's a bug. They solve the problem, kill the villain. It's a very formulaic plot that we've seen a million times over, but we just haven't seen it in this kind of film before, which is kind of nice. It's like Avatar. It's a plot script formula that's been done time and time again with a new fresh coat of paint. That's what made Avatar good, right? Well, some would argue, of course.
Well, I don't know if I'd really make that comparison.
But it is. The plot point, it's a very stereotypical script formula, and it's been done a million times over. But in this film, since it's done with video game characters and in a new form we haven't seen before, it actually works really well with this film. Yeah. And honestly, for a film like this, you don't want to go overly complicated anyway. So it works. It's perfect for this film, I think.
Okay. So I think we can segue into characters at this point then.
Segue into characters. Characters! Okay. Coming up next. I guess we have to go to commercial break. So, well, we'll be right back at JD Show here. Do the theme music.
What? No.
Theme music?
There is none.
Do the theme music.
There is no theme music.
Da 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 da. Oh, hello.
Was it necessary for you to do that for the last 15 minutes?
Yeah, I couldn't stop. You know what Star Wars is like. It just affects me. It gets in there.
If we're going to go into copyright material, I'll choose the next one.
Okay, fine, whatever.
So now we're going to talk about the characters of the movie.
Yes, the characters, as I like to say.
So we'll talk about Ralph first, at least. So
Ralph.
The whole crux of the movie is Ralph, and his struggle with his own identity as a villain. I mean, the movie starts out with him in this villain anonymous group, and he kind of struggling with the idea that he wants to be the good guy. This is the short version. It's essentially his he's not happy with his place in life. His entire job is about wrecking a building, which is fun, but then is being thrown off a building into a pile of mud, which is not so fun, and not getting like the recognition and love of everyone else in that world.
That, and he's basically homeless. What they do is they repair the building after the game's over, and they throw the bricks into this giant pile and he made a home out of the bricks. He lays in the bricks. It's so sad. It's like, this character, man, he needs to feel love, you know? He needs to be desired.
I mean, and it does kind of apply to like a very human need to like, you know, feel wanted. But
yeah.
When it comes around to the 30th,
I felt sorry for him.
Yeah. When it comes around to the 30th anniversary of this game,
yeah,
there's this big party that's being held by, well, say the NPCs or the townies of Nicetown, I think it's called in the movie, and essentially being held in celebration of 30 years in service, along with, you know, Felix being invited, and Ralph is sadly left out of the celebration.
And if it wasn't for Ralph, there would be no game. So I felt for the guy, man. I felt for him.
And you kind of have to wonder, you know, these villagers hold him in such contempt, but here's, I think, the pathos that they should be going through is the fact that they have no meaning for existence without Ralph.
Yeah.
They have to suffer at his hand, otherwise their existence has no meaning.
There's no game without the villain.
And that,
you know?
And that sort of becomes an underlying subplot that while Ralph is gallivanting, you know, trying to get a medal in hero's duty, and then trying to help Vanellope, in the meantime, the arcade operator Litwack, he comes in and is like, well, players start trying to play the game, but Ralph isn't there.
Yep.
And so they determine that this game must be, you know, defunct, so we're going to leave this game as it is, and if nothing improves, like tomorrow, because that's how all good arcade maintenance is done, is just leaving it and see if the problem fixes itself.
Well, I thought they put like a out of order
yeah, they did.
paper right on the screen,
and
they could see that too. They could see outside the screen.
And then the game is going to get shut off if they don't, you know, if Ralph doesn't get back. Essentially, yeah. So if Ralph doesn't get back, then the game is shut down, and then they become, you know, the next Qbert sitting in Game Central Station.
Yeah, and they'd be homeless as living in the power bar.
So then,
so that sounds very silly.
So then Ralph's first inclination is whenever he goes to the bar and he hears about this, you know, well, first we'll talk about the main conflict is that, you know, he goes to the party and it doesn't go very well. Felix doesn't do a whole lot to help Ralph's case, and the villagers simply say, you know, you're not a hero, but, you know, Felix gets all the medals because he's a hero, but, you know, if you get a hero, then we'll let you live in the penthouse.
Yeah.
So that's what becomes Ralph's goal. So then the next morning, he then goes around to all these other games to try to earn a medal.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, which doesn't go particularly well either.
No, but all those characters that are in that game hate Ralph. Like, he's a plague. Mm-hmm. It's like they wreck their house every day, I guess. I understand, but that's their existence, man.
Yeah. And so, and Ralph just sort of turns this whole, like, wanting to be accepted into, it sort of objectifies it in just a medal.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what he treats the idea of being a hero is.
Yeah. Leaves the game, goes up to get a medal. Comes back to get a penthouse. He wants recognition, damn it. Anyways, what else is there?
Yeah,
Felix?
Well, I mean, just talk about Ralph's development a bit more, though.
Oh, you want to talk about more about Ralph?
Well, we're talking about the characters now.
Characters?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yeah.
Ralph?
So then when we talked about, you know, how when he has to make that difficult decision with Vanellope about, you know, destroying her car to essentially save her life.
Yeah.
As, you know, that's when he starts learning, like, you know, what really being a hero is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's true, yeah.
Yeah.
And eventually he doesn't even care about the medal, and he just wants to save Penelope and whoever he can, really.
Yeah. So, I mean, so, like, the entire message of the movie seems to be, you know, accept who you are, which I think is, I don't know if that's really a message that's kind of lost. I mean, it is kind of there. I mean, it's more about, it kind of felt a bit more about everyone else accepting who he was.
Don't be selfish is another one.
Well, yeah.
I think I'll try to save others, and he learns. It's a life experience kind of character. Yeah. Okay. In a video game.
Yeah. Unlike Felix, then I guess now we can talk about him. Yeah.
Well, Felix was more along the lines of spoiled, rotten brat. He's always been the hero. He's always got the recognition for saving the day.
Well, I think it was very much that he was, like, very used to his role of being the hero.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the ironic thing is, you know, by the end, like, Ralph was, like, I'm not going to say that Ralph was a hero right from the get-go, but he kind of, you know, went the hard road about being a hero. Felix, he's not really a hero. He's just playing the role that he's given, and everyone loves him for it. Yeah. To the point that, you know, when it does come to the party at the beginning of the movie, and Ralph is like, you know, I just kind of want some recognition, and Felix is like, yeah,
what are you doing here?
He's not, like, trying to shove him out the door like the other villagers are, but he doesn't seem
to wrap... though.
Well, he doesn't really wrap his head around the concept.
Well, no, he's not mad at him. the villagers get really mad at him, and they're just get out.
But Felix is kind of oblivious to the idea. Essentially.
He's just like, what are you doing here? You shouldn't be here. It's kind of, it's the way that things are, kind of thing.
And that's kind of why I don't want to say I didn't really like the character, but it's kind of, he's not a very likable person because he is very innocent.
Yeah. Eventually, though, he does learn as well. He goes through a life learning lesson as well and falls in love. And
yeah, but mostly at the to Sergeant Callahan or whatever her name was, or the sergeant.
Yeah, I don't remember the name.
Essentially, it's like his very innocent, like 50s charm, as I'll say.
Yeah.
that's very much where he's pulled from, like 50s, 60s, like the very stereotypical hero, like very prompt and like very treating ladies with the utmost of respect, the way that he talks.
Open the door for her. Yeah.
It's like, you know, the idea that she can't take care of herself, that she's going to need a man to take care of him. Very antiquated mindset that he's kind of stuck with ever since his creation in the 80s.
Yeah, which makes sense, I guess, that way.
Yeah, he's very much like a Mickey Mouse character, and that I guess, again, that kind of mentality does tie back to his whole development or lack thereof.
Rescuing the princess, Mario rescuing the princess, kind of programmed into him a bit there in the character.
And that's exactly what it is. He's very much just living the role that he's given, and it's not a bad role per se.
No, I actually didn't like the character much because I thought he was arrogant and all that stuff at the beginning. Eventually, I did grow to like him as well.
Yeah. So I guess I shouldn't say he's not likable, but you can kind of see where he just doesn't have a whole lot of sense to him.
Or you could say he is likable, but it's not right away.
Yeah,
I actually did like him in the end.
I can't say he's a bad guy.
No, he's not.
No, he's not a bad guy. No. He's just oblivious.
And then he realizes he was oblivious. Yeah.
Right. So then we already talked at length, I guess, about Vanellope, about how we felt about the character and such. I mean, and even her own desires about like just wanting to race. I mean, no, that's
she just wants to be part of.
Yeah.
She just wants to belong and wants to have friends. She's like the loner. She doesn't want to be.
Yeah, and like you think like the villagers from the Wreck-It Ralph or from Fix It Felix are monstrous. What about those kids?
Oh yeah.
and Sugar Rush.
Yeah.
I mean, I would hope at least like the King Candy, like, or Candy King, whatever. He like has some sense of trying to be professional and like proper about what he's doing. But these kids, they're monsters.
Rats, yeah, complete pests, like those stereotypical bully girls that they kind of care about their hair and the Heathers. You remember the Heathers? The movie Heathers?
Don't think that.
Basically, the Heathers. Yeah. Look it up. It's a horrible movie, but you'll know what I mean when you see it.
But you still kind of feel bad about Vanellope. I mean, you could say that a lot of her abrasion just comes from what she's had to put up with, like, for the last...
Being a glitch, and and eventually, of course, she grows to learn how to use the glitches to her advantage and stuff.
Which is, again, going to be my bit of a craw at the end of the movie, but we'll talk about that later. Yeah. So I guess not a whole lot much else to say about her. I mean, it is mostly Ralph gaining development. I mean, she is kind of like integral to the plot. I mean,
totally, yeah.
Okay. So not a whole lot to say about the Sergeant then either as a character. I mean, again, she's kind of like a plot device more than anything else.
Yeah, she's the love interest for Felix, which was unexpected, honestly. I didn't really call that, but at some point they started giving hints when he was trying to, win her over affectionately, and she was like, piss off! Yeah, I shouldn't say that. But.
Well, yeah.
Essentially, it's like, what?
She did lead to my favorite line in the entire movie, which was, she was programmed with the most tragic backstory ever.
That was the best part, yeah.
That was easily my favorite line. But.
Yeah. It was like the worst wedding you can possibly imagine. Like, it's just hilarious. Yeah. Just watch that. Oh, you've watched it, but you know what I'm talking about then.
Yeah. Then I guess the only other person left to talk about this movie that actually has some sort of poignance is King Candy.
Yeah. The stereotypical villain.
Yeah, well, I mean, he starts out as like the very affable, like very Mad Hatter-esque.
Oh yeah, like change places, almost like that. Very, very out there and in charge. Yeah.
And then you find out what his true identity was, which was and this is something that really confused me at first, was at the beginning of the movie, and whenever Ralph was talking about, I don't want to be the villain anymore, he wants to change his role. And in the villain meeting, we have M. Bison. And this is why it confused me. It's like, oh, you're not going turbo, are you?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, what do these guys have against hyper fighting? It wasn't that bad of a game, was it?
I was thinking of those third-party Super Nintendo controllers with the turbo button that constantly hits A.
Yeah. So then it turns out, in the backstory, which it was kind of strange in that essentially they made Road Blasters, that's what it was. They turned that into a sort of sacrificial lamb for the story, wherein Turbo was very jealous of a new arcade game, which was Road Blasters, that came in and was stealing all of his attention. And so his actions invariably led to both of those games being shut down.
Yeah, because he would go into the games and infect the games.
Yeah, and that's why repeatedly they'll keep on saying, like, oh, Ralph's gone turbo, like, oh, he's gone turbo, and like that seems to be like the very...
Yeah, and at the same time, you kind of forget about that whole plot at some point, and then...
It becomes a bit of a turn of phrase, and they talk about how it happened, but...
Then you kind of forget about it, and then...
Yeah, it just seems
to... Then it comes back, and then you realize, spoilers, King Candy is turbo. And he caused the glitch, he affected the coding of Penelope.
Yeah.
And made her bugged. And Penelope is actually supposed to be one of the main characters in the game. And Felix, I think it's Felix, or Ralph, he looks outside of in his game, he can see outside the screen like we can see in it. They see out. He sees the Sugar Rush game out in the real world, and sees Penelope right on the side, and it's like, oh.
Yeah, the way that King Candy phrases it is not so much that she is created as a glitch and really should not exist.
Yeah, like something that the bug testers just left in the game that didn't work. It's just in the code.
Incomplete in development.
Yeah, exactly, unfinished.
And then he asks you to go, why is she on the marquee then?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's that plot point.
So
it's all Turbo's fault. Stupid controllers.
Yeah. So...
Well, that's it about characters. Any of the characters we missed?
I'm pretty sure it was something else I was going to discuss, but now it's completely left my memory. So.
Well, anyways, we'll have to go to a commercial break, and for the J-Day show here, so...
You realize you are cleaning that up.
Yeah. Anyways.
Right, so, overall impressions. So, yeah.
Welcome back to the J.A. Show. Overall impressions of the movie.
Yeah. So then, I guess we'll talk about some of the stuff that we didn't have like the opportunity to fit in before. So, I kept on talking about the thing that kind of stuck in my craw before about. So, getting back to the explanation about King Candy of like why he didn't want Penelope to race is the explanation was. She would then raise, she'd be a glitch, she would be hated by the players, they would say the machine is broken, so they would shut off the machine, and she would not be able to leave. Now, because she's a glitch, she would not be able to go into the power bar and leave. Because
so she dies.
Yes. So, this is what kind of a little bit confused me. So I'll let slide the whole thing that she can't leave because she's a glitch, which becomes a plot point when they try to escape this game that's being destroyed by other means.
Yeah.
So then... Here's the thing, at the end of the movie, she accepts her role as a glitch. Like, everything gets fixed, she becomes like an official racer again, everyone recognizes her as like a princess, of all things.
Yeah, that's right, I forgot about that, yeah, she's a princess.
So she's a princess. But
main character, alright.
Yeah, but then she returns to her glitch form, as it were.
Well, yeah.
And so she uses that as a point of her character in the game as the players play, so she becomes the very thing that King Candy was warning about. And like it gets resolved in that, you know, the players love her being in the game because she is glitching all the time.
The king would say, well, they're going to shut down the game because there's a bug in it.
But then we're kind of rounding about to the whole thing that King Candy was like technically trying to avoid in the first place.
And it ended up backfiring. Well, not backfiring, but it ended up being one of the most selling points of the game, where the people that would play it loved that character.
So then she's kind of throwing caution into the wind and saying, you know, this is very much what he was trying to prevent. Like, even though I don't want to say he was wrong about it. He had other reasons why he didn't want Penelope to race.
Yeah.
But this kind of struck me as odd. Then, you know, she's doing going against the very thing she was worried about, and you realize it was a very real danger.
It's 50-50, man. People might hate it and not play the game, which is very
true. And then she still couldn't leave the game because she remains a glitch. And that's kind of what kind of bugged me about the whole resolution of the movie. It's not like, you know, I don't want to say there wasn't a lesson learned. I mean, it was. I guess it does tie into the whole thing, accept who you are. But this is kind of like going to an apocalyptic kind of sense.
I guess, yeah. It's
yeah. I don't know.
She's still bugged. Why is she still bugged? Didn't they go in and fix the coding?
That would be something else too, actually. I don't know how she would have undone that.
I don't know. They did go and fix the coding, right?
Yes. Well,
so why is she still bugged? You tell us, because we don't know.
Maybe I could have missed something. Apparently I missed that in root beer, like in the root beer tapper thing. I kept on thinking like they were referring to the original alcoholic version of tapper, but now apparently some dialogue in there said, "Oh, that only serves root beer." So there could be something I could have missed too. But
that bar, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I was trying to remember what you were talking about. It's like, oh, the bar, yeah. That's another game. I guess we add to the list they go into is Bar Tap.
Yeah.
Unless we did. I don't remember.
Yeah. But yeah, that was kind of my only real sticking point in terms of like an overall movie, overall story. I mean, it's very. I very much enjoyed it. A lot of people like I don't know why some people complain about the idea that, you know, we have this full, we'll say first 10 minutes of the movie that they talk about all of these, you know, they have all these cameos and like, oh well, there's M. Bison and like there's a Kano lookalike, there's, you know,
the ghost and Pac-Man.
The Pac-Man ghost and like all these characters like kind of inundated.
The zombie. That's like one of my favorite cameos.
Well, and kind of an homage to the House of the Dead zombies. I'm thinking it probably isn't. He changed some of its looks, but that's what, because they had the hatchets, right?
Yeah, I know, but it's so hilarious. It's like, oh, it's beautiful. I love the way he did that.
But then some people would say, like, you know, you didn't really talk about the cameo, like, you didn't have really major cameos in the last, you know, 140 minutes of the movie.
No, it's mainly in all in Sugar Rush.
Yeah, well, that's
basically, yeah. The rest of the movie takes place in Sugar Rush and the Power Bar.
Yeah. But they don't use like inundate the viewer with cameos, and I think the movie is much better for it. That it very much relies on its own characters.
Exactly, they don't rely on the cameos to sell.
Yeah.
They rely on
Man, they brought in
the story.
Yeah, they brought in Kubert as like an expository character.
He was a plot point character. Yeah. He actually helped.
Yeah, and then they brought in like Road Blasters, and otherwise it pretty much stuck to its own. So it very much had the ability to stand on its own. I'm very glad that they kind of did that.
Yeah, it was a really good film. I want to see it again. So yeah, totally, I'd totally buy that. So overall impression?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah, check it out.
5 stars out of 10. 10 stars out of 10 stars. What do you think? Or how about we do the thumbs up thing or thumbs down?
We'll decide a numerical scale later on if we do some of these.
Thumbs up.
I'd go watch it again.
Alright. Well, thanks for watching the JA Show, the brand new episode of the new JA Show, even though it's not called that. But, yeah, tune in next time when we talk about something else. I'm not sure what we're going to talk about next.
I don't know. Actually, one last thing I'd want to add on to the tail end of this review is if you kind of like the idea of like all these video game characters and dealing with their roles and such, I would look up a webcomic called Kid Rad. That's KIDRADD. Just Google that. You'll probably find like some sort of it has a very strange kind of display method for webcomics. So you might have to find a version that's compatible with your browser, but I would very strongly recommend it. Essentially, it's a very similar type of story where you have a video game character who's essentially pulled out of his game and is trying to adjust to his life outside of it and finding his place in the world. A whole bunch of other things happen on top of that develop his character, but at the same time.
All right.
I'll very much recommend checking it out, though.
Nice plug. All right. Well, tune in next time. Thanks for watching.
See ya.
See ya.
You're still cleaning that up.